Welcome to 5 tips for grades and test scores for law school. So grades and test scores make up the numeric portion of your law school admission materials. Grades will be your GPA for your first undergraduate degree. The test score will be your score on the LSAT, the law school admission test, or in some limited cases, perhaps a GRE test score. So while both grades and test scores are important for law school admissions, they are not the only parts of your application. Number 1, strive for a good GPA. Goes without saying, right? Do well in your courses. Strive to have a solid grade point average. I would shoot for a 3.5 or above. That doesn't mean that you can't get in with less than a 3.5, but that's what you should aim for. Take challenging courses, though. It's not just your GPA, but what courses are you taking while you're an undergraduate? Number 2, so what happens if your GPA is not as stellar as you want it to be? Well, schools can look to see if there are grade trends. So maybe you struggled early on in your undergraduate career while you're trying to figure out your major, but once you got into your major, you did really well in those courses and your GPA improved. Schools can see that. Maybe you completed your undergraduate degree and then you worked for a while before deciding to apply to law school. Maybe there's been some time lapse since your undergraduate career. This may allow things like your LSAT score to maybe help mitigate a little bit more your lower GPA. If it's appropriate, you might think about asking a recommender to address your work and your academic skills in comparison to your GPA, if that makes sense. Number 3, the LSAT, so the law school admission test. There are 3 different types of questions on the LSAT: logical reasoning, analytical reasoning or logic games, and reading comprehension. There's also an LSAT writing portion that is conducted remotely. And again, some schools will accept the GRE in lieu of the LSAT. So prepare. Plan to spend 3 to 6 months preparing for the LSAT. In this case, slow and steady wins the race. You might want to take a course or you might decide to study on your own. You need to figure out what works best for you. Take lots of practice tests, regardless of which method you use. Number 4, grades and test scores can balance each other out. So a high LSAT score can maybe mitigate a lower GPA. On the reverse, a high GPA might help mitigate a lower LSAT score. How much? That really depends on the law school. Remember, number 5, GPA and LSAT aren't everything. Law schools use a holistic approach in determining admission. So numbers aren't everything. Make sure that the rest of your application materials are really strong. Your personal statement, your letters of recommendation, and your experiences. For more information about test scores and GPAs for law school, check out these resources.